Hello, everyone. We are starting in 30 seconds. Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon to us all, and welcome to the Resilience Hub. This is Challenge 2 on addressing and overcoming water and food systems insecurities. And on this session, we are doing innovation and technological solution for sustainable food and water systems. The session is co-led by the Green Africa Youth Organization, the Stockholm Resilience Center, and AGWA. And we are very happy to have all of you here to join us on this session. This session explores a cutting-edge innovation and policy framework in food and water systems, focusing on youth and future generations and a sustainable financing mechanism. It will showcase and highlight the role of innovative solutions in both adaptation and mitigation of such systems across Africa, Global South, and even the Global North. The main objectives for the session is to showcase innovation, explore policy frameworks, identify strategies, and highlight youth involvement. Also, to foster a dialogue between technology, innovation, researchers, policymakers, and financial stakeholders to bridge the gap between technology development and real world adaptation. So the session will have two panels, and then we take questions from the audience, we take comments from the audience. We'll start with the first one. The first panel is on technological innovations, reshaping food and water systems, and we'll have our panelists join us. We'll have so we'll have our panelists join us. Would have 1 second. We'll have Chinoko from AATF, and we'll have Natalia also join us on this session. Great. I didn't introduce myself. My name is Ifwa Nyamichapia. I work with the Green Africa Youth Organization, and I coordinate its Energy and Just Transition portfolio. And I'm happy to be your moderator for this session. Welcome, Natalia. Welcome, Chinoko. I don't know how to pronounce the first name. Maybe you could help me with that. Vitumbiko. Great. Okay, so I didn't really introduce you. Could you take 30 seconds to introduce yourself so that we know what you do better? Yeah.
Sure. All right. Thank you all for having us here. Well, I'm Natalia Machado. I'm part of the global business area of Solemtech, so global business developer and public affairs. So Solemtech is a Brazilian agri-tech company, so we put together agriculture and technology with AI solutions and software solutions for the farmers. And we started our business in 2007 exactly doing that, connecting the field so the farmers can be more profitable and more sustainable at the same time. We're going to go over that soon throughout the session, so please.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Vitu, or Vitumbiko Chinoko from African Agricultural Technology Foundation. We were established in 2003, responding to the gap of technology within the agricultural sector in Africa, particularly amongst smallholder farmers. So we are in Africa basically to develop technologies, to deploy them to farmers who would otherwise perhaps not be able to get those technologies. And we believe that one of the critical things that is affecting resilience in Africa is that our agricultural systems are not adequately integrating technology. We work around the practical elements of developing these technologies. We also work around policy because the policy enabling environment is extremely critical. Within our enabling environment, we believe that it's not just policies, not just laws, but even in terms of changing the mindsets of people to accept technologies, particularly when it comes to some of the technologies that we're going to discuss here, biotechnology, genetically modified crops, and such like, where I think it requires a bit more for people to change their attitudes before they can accept as part of the resilience toolkit. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vito, and also Natalia. We are very grateful to have you on this panel. But then I want to let you know the main points of discussion to brace yourself for this discussion that we'll be having for the session. First, we'll be looking at emerging technologies in food production and water management. We'll look at success stories and case studies of implementation, and also look at integration of digital technologies in agriculture and water system. We'll explore challenges and opportunities as well. Then lastly, we'll look at integration with policy and finances also. So back to my panelists. I think I'll start with Natalia. So Natalia, we want to know what are the most promising technologies and innovations addressing food and water security? And I know you work out more on agricultural technology, so you'll be able to give us a bit on that. And then follow up with how would those innovations connect their product with sustainability?
All right, thank you. I've been around for a while now, and it's nice to see that the world is adopting technology mainly for agriculture. And this is amazing, not only for technology companies, but actually for products that are going to be more resilient for the future. So the entire supply chain is going to change for the future, not only the machine manufacturers, but also the chemical industry. And well, talking a little bit about Solimtech now, we are a very, it's funny that our founders, they say that Solimtech is a very stressed company, but not coming with the stress word, but a company that is always working a lot on innovations, and things are happening rapidly at the company with the developments. And one of our newest solutions is Solix, the robot, which, well, we have a video here if you mind. I think it's easier for you to understand what I am talking about. So this is one of
Mabadiliko ya
our
tabia nchi ni janga linalodhihirika waziwazi nchini Tanzania. Wilaya ya Mpwapwa ni moja kati ya
Can you mute it? If you mute, it's fine. I mean, okay, I'll keep going. Well, you can see the robot, so you're fine. Well, so this is Solix. Thank you. Yeah. This is Solix, one of our newest technologies. This is an agricultural robot, 100% autonomous. Solix is supposed to live in the field, so that's why we call it technology that lives in the field. And Solix does three main things. One of them is the collection of data on a plant-by-plant level, so we can have information on plant nutrition, plant health, diseases, pests, and start acting on it. So the second asset is what we call the sprayer. So you can see it spraying over there. So that is targeted application of herbicides. So we can get to a reduction of up to 90% in the field. Solix also hunts insects in the field. So there is this bug zapper that you can see in the video. The light waves, they attract the adult insects to the bug zapper and eliminate them with no insecticide at all. So it's a solar and AI powered platform, right? Solar panels on the top, battery so we can run 24/7, tanks for the targeted application of herbicides, cameras for the data collection, eliminating fossil fuel, reducing up to 90% the use of herbicides, eliminating the use of insecticides, bringing 10% more productivity for the farmer, considering if the plant doesn't receive that much stress from the chemical, it produces more, it is more robust. So this is the kind of technologies that we are bringing to the market. It's already scalable right now. We have units sold. And it's fun and interesting to see how easy people understand the concept once they see it running, when they see the numbers, when they have their colleague farmers working with the technology. It's easy for them to understand and actually be part of this technological revolution that is to come. You asked me also about the sustainability part.
Yeah.
All right. Getting to question 2. There is a lot to see in this kind of product, other than all the reductions and the eliminations I mentioned. It's a light product, so we are reducing tillage as well. And it all comes to a social part, right? The agricultural sector, we have a responsibility here of feeding 2 billion more people by 2050. This is a huge task. And having this type of technology in the fields producing 10 to 15% more food without using any more arable land, because deforestation was never part of the equation here, this is what we have to do. And technology and innovation are the only ones able to do that for the future to come. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's really great insights, and seeing firsthand how the technology operates was very fun. But also, we are looking at food and water. So I was just wondering how the food and water system transformation comes in here with your solution. So can you highlight that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the mixture that we have in the tanks, so I mentioned 90% less herbicide in the field, right? For that to happen, the mixture in the tanks, they are more concentrated because they go directly to the weeds. So we have also 80% reduction in the water usage in agriculture, which is huge, not only for the products but also for water. And also with the technologies that come before that, as I said, Solimtech is a 17-year-old company, so we have a very big expertise on the other equipments, right? The traditional equipments. So we also have solutions for spraying, not for spraying, yes, but also for irrigation. So we can help the farmer having more, not conscious, but also more concerned way of irrigating fields. So we can control the water usage. So these kind of technologies, they are capable of helping not only with more food production, but also with less usage of water.
Thank you very much, Natalie, for those clarification. I know you would have a lot of concerns, maybe, because we are looking at how those technologies can come to Africa and how Africa peasant farmers can use even those technologies. Maybe I'll come to you on your reflection on the technology and how that will be used. But let's take what are the practical examples of successes in applying biotechnology to enhance resilience and reduce emissions?
Yeah, thank you. So at AATF, one of the technologies that we are taking to farmers is the GM technologies, genetically modified technologies. And I want to highlight a few ones that we've been able to successfully take to farmers and how the same is actually helping within that, within your question. So we do have one technology which is nitrogen and water efficient technology, which is a technology for rice. With this technology, you are able to grow rice in areas that are nitrogen deficient and also water efficient. So you can see that this is a technology that can cater for dry areas. You're able to grow rice, and with Africa, as you know, we are receiving less and less rainfall in most of the areas. But also you are looking at the growing population. So this is one of the technologies that we feel it's going to be very transformative in uplifting the lives of farmers. In terms of water efficient, it is actually 40% water efficient in terms of if, for example, you don't get rain to about 40%, you're still able to grow this rice. So that's very transformative in a way. We also have a maize technology which is called Tela, and Tela is the Italian for God. This one is drought tolerant, meaning that you can grow this maize in areas that are receiving less rainfall. And as you can see, that drought is one of the most prevailing impacts of climate change in different parts of Africa. It is actually going to be very transformative. We've been able to commercialize this technology in South Africa, most recently in Mozambique, and in July this year in Nigeria. And we are hoping that very soon we can actually have it in Kenya. Maybe lastly, I just wish to mention one more technology, which is the pot borer resistant cowpea. We've been able to commercialize this technology in Nigeria, and I wish to what my colleague here said in terms of efficient use of pesticides. This technology allows farmers to only spray once. When you compare it, for example, with conventional, which for example, would make farmers spray 8 times in a week, you can see that the difference is just as good as a day and light. So with those technologies, we believe that farmers are not just preserving the environment, but they're also saving resources which they can use otherwise.
Thank you very much, Vito. But when people hear about genetically modified crops and innovation, I think a lot of things comes to the minds of people, especially if you're coming from Africa. But then I think we could come to that for more clarification on those kind of technologies and why the need for that. But then going back to context-wise, how can these innovations be adapted to different regional contexts, even looking at what Natalia just shared?
Yeah, so I think development, what you need to do is to make sure that it is contextual. So you can see, for example, that we are not promoting cowpea in Mozambique because cowpea is not a food there. But you come from Nigeria, cowpea is big in Nigeria, and therefore one of the things that I would be promoting or maybe advocating is to ensure that you contextualize your innovations. So not all innovations are going to work the same. Secondly, I think it's important to ensure that within the context analysis, you're also looking at the affordability of these technologies. One of the things that we do at AATF is to employ what we call to promote these technologies within the public-private partnership model, such that farmers are able to get these technologies at a lower price, to the extent that actually we absorb all the royalty part of it, and farmers are able to get this with royalty-free. So I would highlight those things, contextualize, but also look at affordability, because the type of farmers that we're working with are such that, for example, if you put in a market price for these things, maybe they're not going to get them.
Great. Natalia, do you have any points on this, the various concepts of the technology, paying attention to that? Do you have any reflections on that?
Sure. The adoption of technology changes everywhere we go. I mean, when we started things up in Brazil, we started working with the customers that we already have for the platform. So farmers that had bigger farms in soy and in corn. And for them, the adoption was very quick because they are technified, they are used to that. So they started by purchasing like 5 units just at once. When you go to smaller farmers, things change a little bit because they have the support of their cooperatives or retails. So this is how it's happening. The retailers, they are the ones acquiring the technology. So they sell what they call clean field as a service for their farmers. So the adoption changes a little bit. And there is also the matter of connectivity for some places, right? So since connectivity has become a little cheaper, considering Starlink and some other brands, it's getting easier for the adoption. So in our factories, we have 2 Solix factories, one in Brazil, another one in the United States. They are leaving the factory with Starlink installed for some areas that they don't have connectivity. And I know that this might be an issue for some countries still today. So I believe that technologies such as Starlink's one is going to come up soon more and more, and everyone will be able to have this kind of technology in the field.
Thank you very much, Natalia. I think they've explored a lot on the technologies that they are using and how relevant it is to bridging the water and food transformation system that we are all looking at getting to. So I'll come to you, the audience, shortly for your reflections, your input, comment, questions on whatever has been shared here. If you have any comments, you have any questions, I think my panelists are ready to take them. Great.
Thank you very much. I'm Ibrahim from Somalia. I just want to ask, in Somalia, we have land mass of land, arable land, and traditionally for 100 years, agriculture rely on, rainwater. And this is classical traditional, farming system where we have 2 seasons, But now, due to climate change, there are a lot of recurrent droughts, frequent flooding, and when this happens, even the land are not anymore, for example, suitable for the crops that used to be suitable. Then in such context, what kind of takeaways, 2-3 points you give for the use of technology, especially for the, I like the nitrogen, nutrient and water efficient use for rice plantations, and what kind of recommendations such you give? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think that the scenario in Somalia is pretty much what obtains in most of the countries. And it's interesting that in Africa, despite all the rivers, we're still at 5% of irrigation, and I think that's one policy area we need to improve in almost all countries. So I would recommend irrigation, and maybe we can also enable that through rainwater harvesting, which I don't think we do as much. We just allow most of the water to go to the ocean, and then we suffer later on. But I think we also need to explore precision agriculture, where I think the water that we have, we're able to use that water most efficiently. Lastly, I would also want to say that I've talked about GM technologies in Africa, and there are not many countries that do that. I would want to invite most African countries to explore that, especially these drought-efficient technologies that we have. Perhaps that can also push us forward. Thank you.
Can I give one more aspect?
Yes.
Yeah, don't want to be left out here. No, I mean, it has become easier to get closer to the plant, and I know that considering that I have cameras 20 centimeters from the plant, it gets a little easier. But I just came from China. We have an R&D supply chain office there in Shenzhen. And one of the partnerships that we have with the universities is to install a soil sensor, it's Solix, in the robot. So we can have soil sampling from time to time, considering the plant health. So once the robot is running in the field, with the cameras and with the AI, we identify that that plant is not as healthy as it could be. So then comes the soil sensor. So we can have sampling from the soil and understand nitrogen needs or any other needs this soil requires. So the farmer can do this application specifically in that area and save more inputs. So I guess the main thing here is to be closer to the fields, be closer to the plants so you understand its needs, and also help with restoration for the future, as in the flood areas you've mentioned.
Thank you very much, Natalia.
Okay, yeah, thank you, everyone. My name is Bernard. I work for the African Agricultural Technology Foundation, AATF, based in Nairobi, but I'm in the West African office. I just want to ask the lady who spoke about the precision agriculture robotics, using robotics to deal with crops. Looking at the context of Africa, particularly Nigeria, where I come from, where our farmers and land use is heavily fragmented. So basically, the first question would be with respect to cost, the cost of having this kind of a machine operate in a field. Now, operating in a field that is highly fragmented, because I know this basically will be talking about working in an area of large expanses, 100, 200, 300, hectares of land. Now, our contexts are heavily fragmented. So how does this now help us? That is one question to it with respect to cost. Then two, I've been in the field surprisingly for like 20 years of my life, taking data and working. And one of the things that is the most difficult for me is as simple as a new technology, which is seed, getting farmers to leave their old generation seeds and even adopting the new one is such a big problem. Now, how will this introduction help our local farmers in Africa? Also having in mind that the peasant farmers or the local farmers contribute to about 60% of whatever it is that we consume in Africa. So I sat behind and I was just wondering, how does this, play that role? And technology transfer with respect to our farmers also not being as educated as to handle, the joystick, moving this, taking data and all that. So how does that, all this context, come to play with respect to what you do? But interestingly, I love robotics. If it come, it will make a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Well, there are many bottlenecks that we have to fulfill, and you're right. You brought some of them right now. And then about the education, to be honest, the robot itself is very simple mechanically. Yeah, so I can see you. It's very simple mechanically. So if a farmer is used to handling a tractor, for example, it will be easy for him to change a tire or anything. The cameras are simple. The expertise is in the technologies, in the AI. And we have remote support for the software part, but we also have people on the ground to help the farmers understand the technology and work with it. So you would have your technology in your phone, for example, and understand exactly the missions and actually give the robot missions to run. Considering, are you an agronomer? We're chatting here, if you don't mind.
So so I'm a plant breeder and geneticist. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right? If you have this knowledge of the field, it's a way of transferring this knowledge that you have here to understanding the robot insights, so you can help your farmer or help yourself if you were the farmer. So you're not going to lose your touch with the plant. You are also just making it a little more technological. That's how it would be. So the company is up for all the education, as you mentioned. This is happening with our farmers in Brazil and in the other countries that we have operations. You asked me about cost, right? Yes. This is a very fun part because everyone looks at this unit and thinks it costs like $1 million or R$1,000,000, which is our currency in Brazil. And it doesn't. I'm talking about $60,000 unit. Yes. Yeah.
That's much.
Yeah, well, a tractor today is much more if you think about it. But then what we are doing as a business model for the smaller farmers is, as I mentioned before, they work with the retailers and the co-ops. So the co-ops put them all together and they offer a clean field as a service. So the robot can work in many different fields. So they all have their information, and they can work. So each one of those fields, they will receive their kind of data management and the reductions of the herbicide that it happened and all that. So this has been working very well with the smallhold farmers. Did I miss any aspect of your question?
Thank you.
No, I think you did get all of them. Thank you.
Thank you
Follow
very
up?
much.
Thank you.
We have to wrap up this.
Just one more. When it comes to, in Africa, I like you. How about the digital literacy? Because we are talking about technology, because the point come like technology because a lot of people even have difficult to read and write, the literacy issue, how such solutions, can handle the digital literacy. Thank you.
Is that me?
In your view.
I think one of the technologies that I've seen is that it's working. Okay, so what I've really tried to do is, when it comes to digital literacy, is really to ensure that the information is not just words and numbers, but I think we are able to capture pictures which can be easy to interpret, and maybe with the same we'll be able to come up with a referral system where if you've seen something in your farm that looks like very strange from what you're used to, then the referral system, for example, already tells you that contact so and so to help you. So in terms of extension, but I also know in Africa we're dealing with extremely dilapidated extension system, and I think we need to revive that. We have commercialized our extension system to a greater extent. I think we need to be working with our government so that extension, once again, like it was many years ago, is a public good and not a private enterprise that it has become.
Thank you very much, my panelists, Vito and Natalia. You've done amazing in exploring the technologies in bridging the water and food needs and transforming to this better system. Thank you very much, and we've wrapped up the session. On this session, we explored the technology. Up next, we are looking at the policy frameworks and the financial mechanisms to drive these innovations and technologies. And I'll leave it to our moderator to take it out from here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Candace Henry, and I'm a senior research scientist at RTI International. RTI is a nonprofit research institute focused on using scientific knowledge to improve the human condition. We work with U.S. and foreign governments, international development banks, NGOs, and private sector companies to provide research and and expertise to climate-related decision-making. I'm joined here today by Margaret Imprum, who is the Assistant Global Coordinator of the Youth Climate Council's Global Alliance, or YCCGA, at GAIO. She is a climate advocate focused on environmental justice, gender equity, and climate governance, with almost a decade of experience in this space. I'm also joined here today by Dr. Jonathan Kwebeman, who is the Director of Water and Energy Systems at the Center for Water Resources at RTI International. Dr. Kwebeman's work focuses on bringing research in water resource systems and operational management into practice for improved outcomes. So thank you both for being here today. Before I jump in to the hard-hitting questions, it would be great if each of you could please describe. Is my mic jumping out? Okay. If each of you could please describe the work that you're doing at your organization in the technology, innovation, and food and water space.
All right, thank you very much. So, as mentioned earlier, I'm part of the Green Africa Youth Organization, and I think we can't keep quiet about this. We recently won the Earthshot Prize, which is a £1 million award. And yeah, so we're really much very excited. And in terms of what we do, so GAIO, being a youth-led gender balance organization, seeks to focus on community engagement. So don't work not just as an NGO providing solutions to the communities, but working alongside with communities, working alongside with the youth in the space, the local government in the space. So ensuring that whatever solution we bring in are community-led, solving adaptation issues, also ensuring that they have the needed resources to do that. And thankfully, with some of our key partners like the UNICEF, we have a couple of innovative arrangements we've had, which gives organizations the room to have like micro grants, where they ideally will not have direct access to these, big, philanthropies. And I'm feeling that after speaking this, I would have to repeat myself during the panel. So let me just leave it to this, and then I give room for more during the panel. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Candace. Yeah, so I'm in the Center for Water Resources, and I would actually call myself a technocrat. I'm a scientist, I'm a civil engineer, I have a degree in water resources and civil engineering. And I've been doing a lot of work in the water sector with the World Bank, helping to support program development, assessment, valuation, cost-benefit analyses, and capacity engagement with a lot of stakeholders from the water side. Linking into agriculture and linking into energy systems, so bringing those pieces together. One thing that I've noticed, I've been working in the industry for more than 25 years, is that the science is important. It's a big part of the process, but it's not the only thing that's needed to actually make action and difference on the ground. Is to have the policy to help support the action and decisions, to have the data to support it, that then is going to lead to better financing for improved outcomes. So the science is one piece of this, but it's really bringing it together with the policy and the action side that's very important here.
Great, thank you both so much. So as both of these speakers just alluded to, in the previous panel we heard from experts about the emerging technologies and innovations in the food and water space. And in this section, we'll be talking about the policy frameworks and the financing mechanisms needed to scale these solutions. So with that, I will dive right into the first question. We're digging into the details here. So I'll start with maybe John, but please, both of you, I would love it if both of you would answer. What types of data and evidence are needed to inform policymaking for food and water?
Yeah, I would start by asking the question, what is the nexus between policy and data? Let's start thinking about that. And it really has to do with the decisions that are being made for the interventions and the investments. And you can't make good policy without having the data to support it. And you can't, you don't know what data to be collecting if you don't know where you're going and what it's going to be investing in. So understanding those components is really important. It's also, I think that data is really a central piece for evaluating the cost and benefit analyses to justify these programs. When we look at investments that are going to be coming into these programs, you have to support it. You have to support it with this information and the data. I also think that policy is going to be driven by how your system responds to interventions. And so monitoring and continued reporting is extremely important. So not just what has been happening in the past, but after you take action, after an intervention comes in place, I think it's important to say, how is it performing? And how can we adjust it and change it to help improve that situation? Specific data sets, again, I'm a technocrat, I'm a water resources engineer, so we can talk about satellite information. There's a tremendous amount of information out there that's from NASA, ESA, ISRO, JAXA, great organizations that bring in tremendous data sets, and those are invaluable for helping to drive some of the decisions that we make and driving the policy to see those. An important component, I think, of some of those data sets, remote sensing and also ground observations, is how they change over time. Is that especially under a changing climate, we need to understand what are the emerging trends. We've heard a question from our friend here talking about the changes in land use and water availability over time. Well, that is what you need to see to say this is where an intervention is needed. You have to see those trends in temperature, water availability, groundwater levels. So having biophysical observations of our Earth systems are really important. That's very broad brush that covers a lot of different data sets. In addition to that, I would say we need information that goes beyond the biophysical when we get into prices. We talk about food and egg and water. How is water being valued? Is there a price put on it? How much is food going for? What is that whole value chain that we're looking at? We need that information combined with the biophysical and really engage with the stakeholders to understand what are the challenges that they see on the ground for some of those conditions. I think I would summarize data, and I could talk about this for several weeks. But I would say there's a couple really important things that are needed. One is you need organized data, right? There's data that's out there, but sometimes lives on a piece of paper on someone's desk, and it's hard to access, it's hard to read. It lives on someone's hard drive, it's not accessible. We need trusted data is very important. Sometimes in the water sector, we have transboundary water issues, or we have water conflicts. So having data that's not manipulated is going to really drive some of the policy. We have to be able to trust the information. And the last piece is accessible information. Is not just collecting it; it's making it available to the range of stakeholders to help inform decisions and drive that policy. It has to be accessible.
Okay, great. So just to add a little bit, let me just first reiterate or re-emphasize that data is really important. Research data particularly is really, really important, because whatever we CSOs or anyone who has access to grassroots, we do not have the right to just bring solutions if we don't have evidence backing it. So it's really, really important. But aside from that, what will help inform policy would be going now to the stakeholders to engage them. So like stakeholder consultations and get the input from them, because they are the ones that the policies will directly affect and influence. They influence and are influenced by policy. And so it's important to go to them to have the one-on-one conversations. And this is something I realize that most institutions do not do when they're setting up policies, because they feel whatever we know from the central part is enough for the decentralized part, which is not true, because they would be the ones to be the better position to tell you that, okay, you want to do this, but it will work better this way, it will work better that way. And maybe just to give an example. So there was it's a story about some people who wanted to do a well for some grassroots communities because they felt like they didn't have water. And so they built the wall and they realized that people were not using it. It was a mechanized wall. People were not using it. And they were wondering why, because you need water. We've given you water, but you're not using it. They would still walk miles to go and get water. Now, the reason why they were not doing that is because they had a chance to talk with each other. They were always in the house, they were bored in the house. So during the time where they're actually going, they are conversing, they're bonding. And so that was the reason why they were going there. And it wasn't because they did not value the well, but because they valued the time together. So if such a consultation was done before that solution was provided, they would have probably provided a well which is a distance away, so that they can still walk and get the good water. So yes, just as an example. Another thing that is very much needed is to have impact assessment. So even before policies, that you need to assess the implications that would have economically, socially, environmentally, and even this is food and water. So whatever policy you're doing is not just document, it's going to apply on development, apply on sustainability. It's important to do that. Lastly, also have policy evaluations. Even before you want to review policy and bring another upgrade of another policy like the NDCs, you need to actually evaluate what the previous policy did, how it helped, how it did not help, what were the gaps, and that would even inform what you need to add up to, what you need to adjust. Yeah.
Thank you both. Those were really great answers. And thank you, Margaret, for that wonderful example. It is, as you can hear here, incredibly important that we are getting not just, the 30,000 feet data, but also on the ground data that is provided by the local stakeholders, and maybe even Natalia's video imagery of that plant level data. So let me move on to the second question, which is also related. We've been talking about the data that's needed to inform policymaking. Can you all talk about some specific policy mechanisms that are needed to enable greater climate finance for innovative solutions in food and water? And maybe, I don't know, whoever wants to go first, Margaret or...
Okay, thank you very much. So it's really important to have policies that would address the finance gaps. And the thing is, there are a lot of innovative solutions out there, and people just want to be seen, to be noticed, and to be given the resources to make it even work. Truth is, innovative solutions are very expensive. With this tractor, it looked so amazing. I'm asking myself, how much will it cost to bring this to my country? I don't know who can afford this because there are people who would want to have this. It's amazing. But the thing is, if someone even has the know-how to even do a prototype like this in my country, for instance, will the person have even the resources to do that? Most people have the ideas, but they have to now buy the machinery from outside. They have to now do a lot of tax, incurring costs, and a lot of things when it's more like it's going to demotivate them rather than motivate them. And so some policies that would help do this is to, one, have the demand side policies that would stimulate that demand to create that or incentives for people to keep providing these innovative projects. Because if you don't incentivize them, they'll go do the usual things that they know that will have the usual money coming in. They won't want to think beyond the box and even get something out for you. For instance, having something like the tax credit, so tax reductions in things that are very much important for the environment. And if that's what we're looking at, there has to be such incentives like that. And two, having some green bonds that would help, get people some money to assess things that would even help the environment, because they're doing something and it's not just for them, it's for you, it's for the environment, it's for everybody. So there has to be something that would, incentivize them to create more demand for that. Another policy would be the supply side policies, and that would also help you to increase the availability of the climate finance that's already there. For instance, is the National Climate Fund. And this is something that you don't usually see because most countries look outside for the funds, forgetting that within them they can have policies that could create arrangement to have funds to provide these things. And so most people, when they have solutions, they're not looking at the government because they know government will not pay attention to them. They're always looking at the development partners out there, coming to places like COP to look for some philanthropists somewhere, because they know within the country they won't have that. But if we have policies that would, address this climate finance issue even internally, it would really help. Another thing is with that is having some sort of loan arrangement, so that people can have enough money cushion whatever they're going to do, whether or not they have the money there. So some concessional loans would be helpful. And lastly will be some linkage policies. So policies that will give way for like the public sector to work with the private sector. We don't have that. You actually see yourself fortunate when the private sector approaches you and say you want to partner. But if there's such a policy that gives room for there to be easy access of the private sector with the public sector, it doesn't make it look like it's a competition. It doesn't look like I'm coming to take your work away from you. But when it's such a policy that kind of give the private sector maybe, so if let's say for instance, if the private sector wants to support a public sector's arrangement in terms of food and water, they in the policy will probably have tax reduction for them. So it would incentivize them to partner with them and not probably see it as because I want to make profit and you don't want to make profit, I should not come to you. No, they would actually want to come to you because then the government has made room for them to have that easy access with the public. And lastly, the carbon market mechanism is very much important because most people, whatever they're doing here in relation to food, in relation to water, has to do with methane, has to do with carbon, has to do all of these things that are still crying about in relation to with climate change. So if we have these mechanisms that gives room for even the teeny tiny work that you're doing to get some money out of it because of the carbon credits that you're working towards or even contributing to or even getting at the end of the day, it would incentivize you to do more. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That was a great answer. John, do you want to speak a bit on the policy and also potentially financing mechanisms?
Yeah, of course. And I appreciate, I'll pick up where you left on the PPP. I think that's a really an important theme that I've heard a lot about here at COP and in general. It's really a key thing. What I've seen is from the policy side on the PPP is when there's unstable policies that are confusing to the public who are trying to implement programs. So if the policy is changing rapidly, if it's confusing, if it's hard to work with, it's going to discourage individuals from trying to further investment. So I think policy in general should be clear to the private sector. It should be clear to the public. So that is a minimum standard here. It's also making sure that it allows for investment in the private sector. There's yesterday I was listening to a talk in Spain. There were some challenges with getting the private sector to invest in the public side for the fact that they're going to be reaping the benefits from provision of these services, and the policies wouldn't allow for it. So just review those policies to make sure that you can invest and get the private sector engaged is very important. Related to that, and I think it's a level of building trust between the private sector and the public, is transparency in the data, is in making sure that you're monitoring your performance and you're sharing that information to build that trust between the public and the private side is really important. I also, I think it's on the the tech side. I think it's good to break apart. We have new technology and we have scaling of existing technology. And so we can talk about policies related to allowing the innovation and deployment of new technologies. So make sure that that this is an acceptable practice is there. So reviewing those to allow technologies is important versus existing technologies for building wells, for building pipelines, and scaling that is really important. So there's different levels of technology that I think we can separate policies, and it's not one that targets them all. It's going to be within a specific zone here. And just real quickly, I want to talk about alignment. I've seen in some of my work in South Asia misalignment between the line departments within the government, where the policies may not support alignment between them. So you have one line department that's focused on flood control and another that's focused on water supply, and they're not supporting each other. They're not working together. So making sure that your government is actually aligned towards a common goal and common objective is extremely important.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So both of you just talked about sort of alignment and bridging different stakeholders. So within government, private, public and private. That sort of leads me to my next question, which is how can we bridge the gap between potential investors and innovators themselves? So talking about private sector, and then how do we bridge them with the innovators directly?
Yeah, I'll keep going here. This is, I would break it out into the types of innovators that we're talking about, and so I would have four main categories. One is the academic side. There's a lot of research in the academic community going into genetics and going into IoT and AI and et cetera. So academics is extremely important. I think they do a really good job of chasing money and grants. That's what they do. I think the challenge here on the academic side is translating that into something that is digestible by the masses. There's good research out there, but what does it mean to the end user is really important. So there's an opportunity there. I think there's the government innovators. We can talk about them. In the U.S., we have national research labs. They're arms that specifically focus in areas of research that support the government, and that technology can then be deployed and used around the world. So, that's important. I don't think those are the biggest gaps, though. I think as we move into the private sector, what we talked about with the PPP is really important. The private sector is motivated by efficiency and bringing new technologies to scale for benefit, their benefit in the private sector, but also broader benefit in doing good in the world. And that's a good motivating business model. There's a lot of gaps, and I think Margaret can talk more about these with respect to getting the funding through there with the PPPs and others. I think the real crux, the biggest gap that we're talking about here is actually at the grassroots level. It's the local communities their issues that are being communicated and documented and shared, and getting that to the investors to understand. The investor, the banks, the investors, the high levels are operating at such a high level that they're not really understanding the grassroots level. They need to get to the 20 centimeter camera level to really understand some of the challenges here. I'll stop there.
All right, thank you so much. And yeah, we're really much in sync because definitely I'm going to share a couple of things that would even add up to what Jonathan has shared already. So it's very important that in linking the innovators with the investors, you have to foster open innovation, accelerate, leverage accelerator and incubator programs. Now, this is something that gives investors room to directly see what the innovators are doing. And that's one thing that GAIO has been doing. For like 2 years now, we've been having this accelerator program called the African Climate Innovation Challenge. That gives room for African countries, so innovators within Africa, to come and pitch on what they're doing. And even before that, they're taking through some incubator programs that would guide them on even how to go about this generally. And this is something that helps investors see what they've been doing. And even let's say that you're part of the incubator program and you didn't even get to be part of the pitch or win, so an investor somewhere has already seen what you're doing and might be even interested in coming in. And even if you do get to pitch and you didn't even get the fund, you're still seen because you've pitched your work and others have seen whatever you're doing. So that's one of the things we've been doing. Another thing we did in collaboration with our partnership with UNICEF is to have an advocacy seed funding initiative that gives room to have some micro grant for people, youth, individuals, organizations that are involved in advocacy initiatives in whichever form, to have something small to start up, because sometimes they just need that amount of money to start. And like I said, innovators will not, one, have even the confidence to walk straight to an investor to ask for money. One. Two, they wouldn't even know how to go about it. Three, they wouldn't even know what to even say to them. And four, the investor may not even trust them because they were not part of their partners. Because most of these investors will be like, I'm only giving money to those I'm familiar with. If you're not familiar with you, I'm sorry, I cannot help you. So then if you have people who are able to leverage this accelerator and incubator programs, it gives room for them to have trusted organizations to tell them, hey, we engage them and they're credible, because I'm sure GAIO will not give money to someone without necessarily checking their background. I mean, it's our integrity at stake, so we won't do that. Yes, so we definitely do that to help. Another thing I want to share, probably briefly, is to enhance communication tools. And something that GAIO did was to be part of a climate justice fellowship from the Climate Justice Donor Collaborative. That sought to let climate justice activists and advocates understand more about philanthropy not just being a form of generosity, but philanthropy being a form of climate justice. And what we did was we created a tool to help us have a list of all innovators wherever you're coming from. Because sometimes an investor wants to do something but don't know how to look for them. So if you have some kind of a tool, like a well of information, like a document, or for you to see, okay, I want to know those who are involved in renewable energy, where do you go to? You go to that tool, you find. So we call that the climate justice map that GAIO was a partner of. So whatever you want to do, you just go in there, you go to the map, you search whichever part of the country you want to do something in. So that kind of gives room for you to see what is going on without having to now go online. Lots of organizations involved in food. Lots of innovators know, because you already have that map that has, thoroughly gone through due process to gather information. I think I'll end here because I'm being prompted that time is up.
Thank you both so much. Just so you know, I was at a session at the U.S. Center yesterday, and someone was on stage saying, we need a tool that tells us what projects are out there that investors, can look at. So please give a round of applause to our panelists. I'm sorry we don't have time for Q&A, but we are here after the session if you all would like to come up and ask questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we are very happy for having us. We've explored the innovation, and we've explored policies and financing mechanisms to help scale those innovations. Our panelists are around, and you can ask them any questions you want. We'll take a quick photo with all the panelists and we'll wrap up the show. Thank you for having us.